Thank you for joining us at this council meeting on January 5th, 2023. It is 6:32 p.m. And council, when I call your name, please say here or present. Mayor Maxton.
Here.
Councilmember Stroop.
Here.
Elizondo.
Here.
Bliss. Here. Kerner.
Here.
Parker.
Here.
And Menchow.
Present.
With 7 members of council present, a quorum is declared.
Thank you, Christina. Everybody please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
I pledge allegiance to the flag of
the
the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. As a reminder, we are live broadcasting tonight's meeting. First, thank you for everybody for being here tonight. We are live broadcasting the meeting tonight. If anybody chooses to speak as part of the meeting tonight, I would ask that you use the microphone that we have up here in front and do not speak from the seats. Because if you do, the people that are listening on the live broadcast can't hear what you're saying. And also, we capture a recording of the meeting, and we'll capture it if you're speaking from the microphone. For those that do speak as part of the meeting tonight, if you're from some agency, please state your name and what agency you're from, or city staff, what department. And if it's a resident that is speaking, please state your name and whether you're a Fair Oaks resident or not. All right, we'll move on to citizens to be heard. We didn't have anybody sign up for citizens to be heard tonight. Is there anybody here that is with us that didn't get an opportunity to sign up that would like to speak? Okay. We'll move on to our consent agenda. We have one item on the consent agenda tonight, which is the approval of the December 15th, 2022 regular city council meeting minutes. Could I get a motion to approve the consent agenda? From Chesley, and a second?
A second.
Apologize. I forgot to ask if there was anybody that wanted to remove this item to consideration. Okay. Laura did the second. All in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The consent agenda is approved. We'll move on to our consideration items tonight. We have 4. The first one is the consideration and the possible action approving a resolution authorizing the power of eminent domain for the acquisition of pipeline easements and certain property rights necessary for the construction, the enlargement, and maintenance of pipelines and apparatuses designed to carry water and wastewater within the city's certification area. And Tobin, are you going to kick this off for us?
Yes, sir. Mayor and council, I'm going to read through a few bullet points. It may take a minute or two, and I apologize for that, but the items 5 and 6 are somewhat linked, and so the comments that I'm about to make are applicable to both agenda items. I also want to point out that representatives from the Urbanist Developers Branch are here along with their legal counsel, and I believe that they're prepared to make some comments as well. But this particular item, the purpose of the agenda item is to initiate the necessary actions for the city to obtain water and wastewater easements. One of the requirements in our Unified Development Code, as the council knows, is the requirement to extend utilities to new development, and the cost to do that, to construct and build that infrastructure, is borne by the developers or borne by the development community, and it's under the premise of growth pays for growth. Also under the UDC, when new development comes in, the developer or the development community is required to extend public improvements to the edge of the property, all the way to the property line, so that adjacent development and the continuity of the utility system can continue as adjacent areas or properties in the area continue to develop. Unfortunately, the city of Fair Oaks Ranch did not have that requirement to extend utilities all the way to the property line before the UDC was adopted. That's not uncommon. A lot of cities don't have that, but all the cities with modern development tools in their toolbox, like UDC, zoning ordinances, and updated subdivision regulations, do have that requirement. And again, it's just to ensure that there's a program logical system put in place and a continuity as development occurs. So that's the exact situation we have going on right now in Fair Oaks Ranch. We have a development that was started, or vested, as I would say, before the UDC was adopted. That particular development did not extend the water and wastewater lines all the way to the edge of the development. Now here we are in 2023, and we have some proposed development in the area of the arbors, and they need to access the end of those lines, the water and wastewater lines, which are public lines. The city owns and operates those lines. But there's a gap between the end of the pipe, and I'm simplifying this, but the end of the pipe and the property line, maybe a 10 by 10 gap at the end of each. And connections cannot be made by the developer who's required to make them per the UDC. It's my understanding that the developer has spent the better part of a year trying to obtain those easements privately without the city's assistance. They schedule a pre-development meeting with us where we also emphasize the need that you're required to extend the water and wastewater system per the UDC. And so they're making a good faith effort to do that. We've also, as a city, tried to reach out to the owner of that gap, which is the developer of the arbors, and we have not received any responsive. They've been unresponsive to our request, and that was over the course of 3 or 4 months. So this particular item is authorization to move forward with eminent domain if necessary. If the council approves this resolution, staff is going to make more opportunities or offers to try and obtain these easements through amicable solutions. If that doesn't work, then approving this resolution would authorize the city manager and the city attorney to advance eminent domain proceedings to obtain those easements. And again, I think it's important to note, these easements are going to be needed regardless of the particular development that's coming or not. This part of the city is in our CCN. It has the potential to develop, and at some point, whether it's this development or future development, they're going to be put into the same position of trying to acquire these easements. And another reason it's important is we don't want to have the utilities out in the TxDOT right-of-way of FM 3351. As you're aware, we have an item later on in this agenda where we're having to pay for right-of-way improvements 10% to TxDOT's bridge expansion, and part of that cost is to move utilities. So we certainly don't want to put brand new utilities back in the right-of-way that we know are going to have to be moved at some point in the future at our cost. So this is an opportunity to move forward, to obtain those easements. The next item we'll discuss how that cost is going to be covered. But we are recommending that council approve the resolution, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have, Mayor and council, and the developer is here as well.
Any questions for Tobin?
I don't know if it's a question for Tobin or the developer. Once this work is started, are y'all, because I'm assuming it's going to cause quite a churn in the area right behind the houses adjacent to that easement, are y'all going to be notifying the residents that are right by the area?
Absolutely. Once the easements are obtained, the next step for this developer will be to submit all the construction plans for us to approve and make sure they comply with all of our codes. And then if any of those properties in the arbors are going to be impacted with noise or construction, they will certainly be notified that there's a project getting ready to occur by us, and I'm sure, from them.
Sir, did y'all want to make any comments, or? I didn't know if you'd planned to, or?
No, I'm a lawyer, you paid to talk. I will keep my comments brief. Mayor, Council, my name is Rob Killen. I'm a land use attorney at the law firm of Killen, Griffin, and Fairmont. Our address is 10101 Reunion Place in San Antonio. I am not a Fair Oaks resident, but I live 10 minutes from here, so I appreciate the proximity. This is the closest city hall to my house. So I consider myself at least a nearby resident. No, I just want to thank you so much. As Mr. Maple said, we have spent almost a year. Our first outreach to the Arbors developer was in March of 2022. We have spent a lot of time reaching out. We had some initial contact and have been completely, for lack of a better term, ghosted. And city reached out. We worked with Mr. Maples, Mr. Santee, the entire city team. I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you. Not just to Tobin, but to the whole team. And we did everything we could. The only way we can connect to city utilities without going out into the road, which we don't want to do because it's TxDOT road, is to cover that just couple-foot gap, which doesn't make sense, it would never be approved today. So my only comments are really just to say thank you for the opportunity to be part of the community.
Any other questions from council? Any questions from anybody here tonight? Then could I get a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the power of eminent domain for the acquisition of pipeline easements and certain property rights necessary for the construction, enlargement, and maintenance of pipelines and apparatuses designed to carry water and wastewater within the city's certified area?
So moved.
From Roy,
Second.
Michelle. Any other comments from council?
I have a sidebar because I didn't look it up and I should have, so it's my fault. But what is the land next to it zoned? Just out of curiosity. Do you know? Thanks.
Any other comments from council? This one requires a roll call vote, so I'll turn it over to Christina for the vote.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, when I call your name, please say for, against, or abstain. Mayor Maxton.
4.
Councilmember Stroop. 4. Councilmember Elizondo.
4.
Councilmember Bliss.
4.
Councilmember Kerner. 4. Councilmember Parker.
4.
Councilmember Menchow. 4. This is unanimously.
With 7 votes for, then
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
resolution passes. Thank you, Christina. Now, then we'll move on to our second item, which is the consideration and possible action approving a resolution authorizing an easement acquisition reimbursement agreement with Urbanist Incorporated. Tobin, this is the one you were talking about that follows along the same line.
Yes, sir. This is directly linked to the previous item. The purpose of this agenda item is just to ensure that the city is reimbursed for any costs associated with the action that you just authorized us to move forward with. So this reimbursement agreement that we've worked out with the applicant provides for reimbursement for all of the city costs, survey, legal fees, administrative time, anything that we utilize to try and obtain these easements. The applicant has also agreed to escrow money into an escrow account with the city so that we can draw that down from a debit perspective, and they've agreed to never allow that dollar amount to get below a certain level. So again, the purpose of this agreement is just to ensure that the city gets its money back for moving through this process. Again, it's associated with the growth pays for growth, and it's one of the requirements of the UDC.
Any questions from council? Any questions from anybody here tonight? Okay, then can I get a motion to approve the resolution authorizing an easement acquisition reimbursement agreement with Urbanist Incorporated?
So moved.
Chesley?
Aye.
Scott? Any other comments from council? With no other comments, we'll go ahead and take a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate y'all.
You know the rules that once you come, you can't leave till.
All right, see ya.
Thank y'all for being here.
Yeah.
With that, we'll move on to our third item tonight, which is the consideration and possible action approving a resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement to contribute right-of-way funds with TxDOT for the FM 3351 Cibolo Creek project, expenditure of the required project funds, and execution of all applicable documents by the city manager. And welcome back, Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, council members, city staff, ladies and gentlemen in attendance. I'm Grant Watanabe, the Director of Public Works and Engineering Services. And this evening, I'm going to be presenting a cost-sharing agreement with TxDOT and the associated resolution for the FM 3351 Cibolo Creek Bridge project for your consideration and possible action. So I know we're going to get a little better update from TxDOT later in the month as part of our transportation town hall, but just to recap where we're at with the project. TxDOT is trying to finalize the design this month. They're also working in parallel to finalize their right-of-way acquisition efforts. The intent is to start their relocation, at least the utility relocation, in advance of construction sometime in the summer and the fall, and then finally let construction in February of 28, or sooner if they're able to. February of 2020, I'm sorry, February of 2024. I'm sorry about that. Thank you. So pursuant to Title 43 of the Texas Administrative Code Rules 15.52 and 15.55, some cost participation ratios have been established between federal, state, and local government entities for highway improvements and other transportation projects. In this case, for an existing farm-to-market road, those cost participation ratios are 90% state and 10% local. So in this case, the total cost of the right-of-way acquisition and utility relocation is estimated to be about $770,000. So the state's share, which is about 90%, is $693,000 of that, and then our city's share is about $77,000. Now, since the city didn't budget for this, city staff is recommending that we take $77,000 from the $1 million street maintenance budget that was recently approved. And there's a couple reasons for this. First is the nature of the work is similar between the TxDOT roadway work and our street maintenance work. The nature of the work is similar. And secondly, the reduction of $77,000 from the budgeted amount has only a small impact on our street preservation efforts. In fact, it does not reduce the overall PCI or the OCI when we conducted our preliminary cartograph analysis. It won't increase as much, but it won't decrease, which is the point I'm trying to make. There were also other fund sources that were considered, but when talking with finance and our assistant city manager for administrative services, this was the recommended way forward. And I think that's all I have. If there's any questions, I'm willing to take them at this time. Yes, ma'am.
My question is related to the utility adjustment. What are we adjusting specifically? What utility lines?
So for the city's going to have to adjust some well lines that run parallel to FM 3351.
The water lines?
Our water well lines. In addition, CPS Energy is going to have to relocate some utility poles. Spectrum and GVTC is also going to have to relocate as well.
And they're going to pay for that. Who's paying for Spectrum and CPS?
They are paying for their relocation.
TxDOT or CPS? Okay. When we do road construction and we have to move utility lines, do we, in other parts of the city, unrelated to this project, do we typically fund the relocation of those utility lines out of the road fund?
Well, if it's a city-owned utility, then we definitely do. I'm just trying to think back to our chart rail realignment where we also had some utility impacts with AT&T and Charter, and since they're within our right-of-way, they relocated their lines at their own dime. We did not pay for that.
But I'm talking about for our utility lines, when we did the Chartwell realignment or when we do Post Oak, if we're going to move our own utility lines, does that come out of the road maintenance or road project fund, or does it come out of the utility?
Going back to the Chartwell realignment project, the Chartwell project paid for that relocation for the city's water lines because
and that comes out of
project was the
SAP, which comes
driver
out of the general
to
fund.
The need to relocate
Okay,
the
so I
lines.
just want to make sure we're being consistent here. So in previous projects, when we did utility realignment for road projects, it came out of the general fund.
Correct.
Yeah, probably should have asked just like that. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Any questions from anybody here tonight? Then can I get a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement to contribute right-of-way funds with TxDOT for the FM 3351 Cibolo Creek project and expenditure of the required project funds and execution of all applicable documents by the city manager?
So moved.
I second.
Roy and Laura? And any other comments from council? With no other comments, then we'll go ahead and take a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Then the motion is approved. Thank you, Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
With that, we'll move on to our last consideration item tonight, which is the consideration and possible action approving a resolution allocating fiscal year 2021 and 2022 general fund balances and carryover of encumbrances and continuing appropriations. Hello, Rosie.
How are you?
Good. How are you tonight?
My name is Rosie Vela, Finance Director for the City of Fair Oaks Ranch. And this item that we have is a typical one that you've seen in prior years. As we close the year, and the city's still under audit. They haven't finished the audit, so assuming that the numbers don't change, this would be the amount that would go into the Capital Projects Fund in order to preserve it. The audit has been ongoing now for a while, and we have had 0 adjustments, which I think is really good. 0 management letter comments, which is also very good. And so assuming that everything stays the same, this is the amount that would go into the projects in order to maintain, as we've done in the past, moving this money into the capital projects. So the total dollar of $774,394, that would be the projected remaining balance in the general fund. So the strategic projects fund, then in the past we've appropriated it into the capital projects fund, and we'd like to do the same thing so that it can be protected for future projects that we might have. Do we have any questions? It's not an unusual item. It's as we've done it in the past. Yes, ma'am.
Do we normally put it directly into the strategic capital fund, or what are the other options that we have besides assuming we want to spend it on more projects?
Well, one of the options, obviously, is that it can just go into the uncategorized fund balance. But if we do that, then when we want to use it for projects, then we have to come back with 2 readings, an ordinance to allocate it to those projects. So, I mean, that's certainly an option that can be done. It just becomes, if our intent is to use it, it kind of protects it for those projects that need to be done. And it eliminates a couple of steps that we would have to go back through to appropriate it.
But by approving this, we're essentially saying we are intending to use all of our surplus for strategic projects, and we're not considering anything else. That's essentially what we're saying right now.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
That
I'm not sure we've had that discussion, so.
Mayor and council, may I provide some clarification? So we have done this in past years. The monies cannot be used for any capital projects or anything unless it comes back to council. The primary benefit of doing this is it parks the money in that strategic capitals fund. It allows a little less resistance should council decide to use any of those monies. If we just put it back into the general fund, you still have authority, of course, to spend that money. We just have to come back with an official budget amendment, which is an ordinance, and 2 readings of that ordinance. So this is just a way to park the money, but you absolutely have the choice to park it wherever you want.
Can I just finish with my question? Sure. So I understand what you're saying, Tobin. However, what that means is if we decide between now and July, we don't allocate it to some other project, it's going to be rolling into the next budget automatically in the capital fund, and we're making it a perpetual decision here to keep it in our project fund, when maybe in the next budget cycle we wanted to make a different decision.
That's correct.
Okay.
So
I seem to remember, and maybe I'm wrong, and so I guess the question is, do we always, or you're saying this is what we've done in the past, has it always been the entire amount going into that fund? Because I do seem to remember that we've had a general unallocated fund balance that has not been the strategic action. So if we're saying, oh, this is what we always do, is it the whole amount, or is it a part of the amount, or what have we always done?
Well, there certainly remains a portion in the general fund, fund balance. That's a requirement. That's certainly something prudent that we have to do. So this is just the amount that would be above and beyond the amount that we keep in the general fund, fund balance. This is just
No,
an
she
extra.
doesn't know.
Go ahead.
I'll add Scott Husingay, Assistant City Manager, just a little color. The short answer is we've done it a variety of ways in the past. For example, last year, I think to your point, we did not officially transfer the amount into the projects fund. However, at our year-end presentation, we identified a number of projects that we would potentially use it for. And as this council recalled, during the year when we came forward to the council with those projects, we had to also present a couple of budget transfers to you, which I think to the city manager's point, just slow down the process on those projects a little bit.
So I understand all of that. I guess I don't like the idea of saying this is coming up and presenting, this is how it's always been done, because I don't agree with that statement.
Not always, but prior to last year, we have done it this way. So we've done it a variety of ways. So we have done it this way before. We haven't always done it this way. And all council decision.
I guess if we're taking opinions, for me, I understand that it's extra red tape. I understand that we have to jump through 2 readings in an ordinance to get something done, but I would feel more comfortable having the red tape there and leaving it as is versus putting it in the strategic action fund.
What are the other, aside from what Tobin just said and less red tape, what are the other pros of leaving it this way as opposed to doing what Chesley? I mean, we know the obvious, but what are the other pros?
Why don't I let Scott answer that, since he's gone through this a couple of times?
Okay.
The 2 different ways.
The pros to doing it as proposed in the resolution?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's primarily the timing issue. Any project that is in the strategic projects fund now still would have to come back to the council to approve the contract. As council recalls, in the budget itself, we approved 7 drainage projects and some other projects totaling about $3.8 million, if I recall, in the budget. We have some carry forward projects that are also included in this resolution from the prior year. So we have about $4.8 million in projects that are slated in the projects fund.
Which is
fund
basically
for
what
this year.
Tobin just said. It cuts
Mhm.
out the red tape. But I was asking, is there any other pros to doing it this way as opposed to it makes it a whole lot easier on probably everybody?
Not a significant one, no. Just understanding
Okay.
that we expect costs to go up as we've seen throughout the last couple of years. But that is the primary pro.
And what about pros and cons of doing it the other way?
Putting the money into the unallocated fund.
Yes.
Then it's, I think to the point, just it remains unassigned for any council purpose. So we already have, as council recalls, we have various categories of fund balance. We have the assigned fund balance, of course, the reserve is the largest portion, or 6 months of operation reserve. Then we have this unassigned fund balance, and that's what we're looking at tonight, is what to do, if anything, with that unassigned portion of the fund balance, which is the approximately $774,000.
Roy?
So if we move forward with putting it in the strategic project fund bucket, and we get to the next budget cycle and we, through that process, decide that there's some alternate use that we think is more optimal at that time, is there any reason why we couldn't reallocate the dollars through some process at that point?
There is no reason you could not do that. You could either do that through the budget
So-
itself, or anytime during the year, you could also transfer it back.
So until we make a decision to actually fund a specific project and let a contract on that project, these dollars aren't spent. We're just talking about a bucket to house the dollars in until, and this is also, if I understand, considering the fact that we already have projects on the list that these dollars could go to. So that's my interpretation of why staff is recommending to throw them in this particular bucket at this time, since there's already a list of projects out there that have yet to be initiated.
That's correct.
That's correct? Okay. So we're not making a permanent decision either way
I don't see it that way.
at this
no,
point?
sir.
Okay, thank you.
And there's no heartburn either way. This is just our recommendation. If the council wants to put the money back into the general fund, that's perfectly fine.
If we took no action today, where would the money go?
We would, if we took no action on that portion, it would remain unassigned in the general fund.
So we wouldn't have to take any action today if we.
I would, well, we very strongly recommend you take action on the resolution, even if you strike the first section, because the resolution also calls for the carry forward of existing contracts and encumbrances for the prior. So we definitely need action on that portion.
Got it.
If you want to amend it to strike the first, be it resolved, then it would, the fund balance would remain unassigned.
But just to be clear, I know, Roy, you were saying that there wasn't any perpetual, anything could be changed. That's right. However, if we move it into the strategic project fund now and we don't use it, it'll be in the strategic project fund when we start next year. Most of the time, we don't consider unfunding the strategic project fund when we start the budget cycle. So we're basically saying, we're deciding today to spend an additional $700,000 on projects than we had budgeted at the beginning of the year.
I would say to appropriate, not necessarily spend, but I take your point. I mean,
Right. We are.
We don't-
We're making a decision today to fund $774,000 more projects, whether we start them this year or next year. That's,
Yeah, obviously, we don't know at this point where a lot of those budgeted projects will come in once they're designed, let, and bid.
Yeah.
If I'm hedging, I think they're gonna be higher, but
Yeah.
but until we know, we don't know.
right, okay.
Go ahead.
So again, just to be clear, if we leave it where it is in the unallocated general and we don't move it towards projects, the only con that we've heard tonight, or that I've understand that we heard tonight, is that we have to go through a budget amendment and 2 readings to appropriate those funds moving forward.
I think that's essentially it, yeah.
If,
Okay.
if we were going to utilize them this
Yeah,
year.
so we could still use it for a project, we would
Or we could use
just,
it in budget.
we would just have to go through one step extra process. Instead of doing a council action, we'd have to have a 2-step
It could
process.
potentially slow down some awards of contracts once we got to that point. That's the main logistical issue.
Okay,
But if it really came down to that, I mean, we could find ways to get an ordinance or a resolution approved through 2 meetings
It would be
quicker if needed. I mean, we can
If-
find ways to meet that.
Sure,
It's,
sure.
shouldn't drive us as
Right.
part of this decision, I guess is the
Totally.
point I was trying to make. Anybody else? Any questions or comments from anybody here tonight? Let's go ahead and entertain the motion. Could I get a motion to approve a resolution allocating portions of the general fund balance and authorizing the finance director to carry forward continuing appropriations for year-end encumbrances, contractual commitments, and capital projects? Nobody wants to make the motion?
I'll make the motion with the intention of amending.
I'll second with the intention of amending.
Now we have a motion on the table. Time for council comments as part of this.
I guess I can explain myself. I am considering removing the movement to strategic project funds, though I do feel like one of the projects I'm most interested in is underfunded. I do feel like we should probably make that as a formal decision later on, and look at potentially, there's many other options that we could use for funding of, of, say, the civic centers for that matter. So, I would be more comfortable with staying in the unallocated fund and then making a decision later. That's just my opinion.
Is that a formal motion?
No, I was giving my opinion. I haven't made the motion yet. If you want to, go ahead.
So,
Do you have further comments on it, or?
I mean, motion to strike the beginning of that motion and leave in the encumbrance and continuing appropriations for the strategic and capital projects.
All right, so I got the first part, strike the,
I'm sorry, I turned myself off. So striking, moving the unappropriated 774,394 to the strategic, and just leave the second half of it.
So,
Go
Mayor.
ahead, Roy.
Yeah, I guess the way I'm hearing the proposed amendment is that,
Well, there's a
The
motion.
par-
I think we could only do seconds at this point.
well, I guess I'm just kind of asking a clarifying question, if I may.
I second the amendment. So now you could ask your clarifying question.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Sorry.
ma'am. No, okay, I understand now. So my clarifying question is, on the first page of the resolution, second paragraph from the top, that says now therefore be it resolved. So we're going to strike that paragraph
No idea.
and then leave the last paragraph on that page where it says, so this is just, to get the text right, that bold statement, the now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of Fair Oaks Ranch needs to be moved to replace the bold section and that last paragraph on that page 45. And that's what we're proposing?
I'm trying to get clarification on the amendment.
Well,
It-
Roy's trying to make a point. that
Yeah,
this right here needs
the
to be-
amendment is to strike the paragraph, the second paragraph from the bottom
Yes.
up
Now
on
therefore-
page 45, but then that now therefore section needs to replace the be it further resolved section. And then I think that leaves us with a complete, properly worded resolution.
And I think what Chesley's motion, so our motion was really just to approve a resolution allocating portions of the general fund balance and authorizing the finance director to ... And she just amended that motion to remove the words allocating portions of the general fund balance from the verbal motion that we made. I don't think we,
Oh, okay.
I have a question. That's, to clarify my motion, I was looking at page 44, where it shows you the recommended motion. And instead of I move to approve a resolution allocating proportions of the general fund balance, I was saying strike the beginning and then authorize the finance director to carry forward the continuing appropriations for year-end encumbrances. Leave all of that. So I was only dealing with the motion. I hadn't moved forward to the resolution.
Chesley, do you mind reading it exactly like you're trying to word it instead of trying to tell me?
Can I ask a question before
Well,
we
it's
get
right there on page
Hold on a second.
44. Sorry.
Go ahead, Chesley.
Oh, I was answering her question. So on page 44, where we have the recommended motion,
Yep.
I was saying strike the beginning of that sentence about allocating proportions of the general fund balance.
Okay, that's what I,
So I was only dealing with the motion. I hadn't moved forward to the resolution.
Okay.
if that makes sense, because I thought that's where we were.
All right. And Michelle, does that answer your question?
Yep, it does, thank you.
And Emily?
For Laura and Chesley, what is your goal here? What are we trying to do with the money? Because I'm kind of lost. Are we trying to keep it in the general fund with your motion?
Yes, the
As opposed
unallocated.
to moving it into the strategic? So if we take no action tonight, isn't that what that does? Why are we going through this whole circus of wording stuff if we can
Because-
just do nothing?
Because
We still
Scott
need to
needed the
do the part
second
on the
half of that.
encumbrances.
Scott needed, when we asked the question, he needed the second half of it, the encumbrances moving forward. So if you look at the recommended motion, there's a
Okay.
second half of it. So I only took off the first half of the moving to the strategic fund versus taking out the whole motion.
Okay, right, so do we need a resolution now too as well? Okay,
Yes, but we have to just delete out the strategic action
Gotcha.
portion of it.
okay.
Hey, Rosie and maybe Scott, if you could help me out with this. So I believe the amended motion proposed on the table is I move to approve a resolution authorizing the finance director to carry forward continuing appropriations for year-end encumbrances and contractual commitments. Do we need the part with the capital projects also?
We do, because there are capital projects in the current year that are.
Okay. But does that meet, you understand what
Yes.
we're trying to get to?
Right.
Does that meet
Sure.
your requirements
Right,
and would keep the funds in the unallocated
exactly,
portion of the general fund?
right.
Crystal clear.
All right.
Very good.
Clear as mud.
So then, can we also close on what because we're basically, that motion is to put this resolution into effect. So can we close on what the changes to the resolution that we're in effect approving are?
Yes.
So I guess I just want to verify that I am staying true to what Laura and Chesley were trying to achieve if we just strike that next to the last paragraph on page 45 and just leave the last paragraph with the change in the header language. That gives y'all everything you need?
And
Well-
just
Okay.
need those two
Well-
words, now therefore, be it resolved.
And also at the title, we'll have to strike it from the title of the resolution as well.
Good point.
Yep.
That looks good.
You look at the whereas pursuant to GASB 54, City Council desires any remaining unassigned balance after all other required allocations are made to be transferred to the strategic. I mean, we got to strike that. But I think that was obvious, maybe.
The last whereas, is that what you're saying?
Yes, 3 up, third paragraph up.
Yeah, the last whereas.
That's the last whereas needs
Yes,
to be
sir.
strict.
So that goes away. Okay. That works.
Is there any requirement, any urgency to get this passed tonight?
Well, it would be a good idea to get it passed tonight because we're getting close to the end of the audit. I think we'll probably be bringing that forward fairly soon. I mean, if you wanted to delay it a couple of weeks to think about it, I don't think it would hurt, but.
For me, it wasn't thinking about it, but,
With all the corrections,
right. So
wordsmithing.
my concern is the resolution. And if we were able to table it tonight, possibility, not saying it, but possibly to table it tonight so that we can make the appropriate adjustments to the
bring it back.
resolution and then bring it back to the next meeting.
I don't think that's a problem.
It wouldn't cause you an issue with the audit, or, I want to make sure we're not causing any challenges for you.
I think 2 weeks is fine. We're getting close to the end, but if we do 2 weeks, I think we'll be fine.
I mean, I agree with you. I personally don't feel comfortable voting on it with all the changes we've made without rereading it again.
Sure, I understand. That would be fine.
Oh, go ahead.
I have a question for Dan, actually. I did that just so you have to put your headset on. I know, I know. I like to feel like you're involved in this. So when we make a motion to approve a resolution, are we making a motion to approve this resolution with this wording? Or is it just saying staff go write a resolution based off of what we just talked about?
No, ideally, it's, you have the resolution before you.
Okay.
But I have councils all the time do what y'all have already done, and it doesn't come back. I understand if y'all want it to come back so you can see those changes, but we can make the changes that you've stated without it having to come back for you to see it again if you don't want it to come back.
Yep.
I mean, Tobin and I have sit over here and marked it up already, so.
And the mayor would look at it before he signs it
Correct.
Of course.
to make sure that it
Thank you.
includes
I
what we
appreciate you
want.
reminding
No,
me.
what I'm saying is that you're our check. You
Yeah.
can check to see that it
Yes.
was corrected the way that we intended.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So we have two motions on the table. We'll probably have to
Right,
reject.
we have a motion and an amended motion.
So I believe we vote on the amendment first and then go back to the core motion.
Yes. Let's do that, and then, and see where we
Or we
stand.
can move the table.
That's correct. That's an intervening motion. That would take precedence. If the motion's to table, then that's the
Yeah.
only motion you have to entertain and vote on.
I moved
The
it,
motion's been to table.
I moved a table.
Second.
Yeah, second. Third. I'll third that one.
Okay,
Until the next meeting, is what I was going to say.
so we have a motion, an amended motion, and now a motion to table the item. With a second,
Michelle?
all right, so we had a motion to amend, and was that, it was Laura?
I tabled the entire agenda item to the
I was
next
just trying to
meeting.
get the,
That's moved.
when we,
I-
the amendment.
Yeah. I tabled the agenda item to the next meeting.
Then who seconded it?
Like a billion
Michelle,
people.
Michelle seconded
Michelle
the table.
seconded. Michelle,
Michelle seconded it.
I
All right.
feel like we've been watching too much of Congress. Too much going on.
It's going to take
All
us
this
10
stuff
votes.
going
All right, so we have a motion on the table now that is to table this item. Is there any comments, further comments from council?
No.
Okay, with that, then we'll go ahead and vote on the motion to table. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And this item is tabled and to bring back at the next council meeting.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rosie.
Okay.
The next item that we have up is a workshop item to discuss the upcoming city elections, 2023 city elections. And Christina's going to lead us through this one.
I don't know about you, but I'm exhausted. Good evening. I'm Christina, the city secretary at Fair Oaks Ranch. I'd like to talk to you about the upcoming elections. Currently, this year, we have two of our council members who are up for re-election. One is Roy Elizondo for place 2, and Chesley Munchow, place 6. We have already placed applications for anyone who's interested in running for those seats on our city website. The website applications are fillable, so you don't have to print them out. There's also links that will bring you to different places that might be helpful when you're making your decision and looking up information. The only thing that's not fillable is the form for submitting information from the Texas Ethics Commission. But we also have paperwork in the foyer if anyone would like to take a hard copy home with them. So let me go over the calendar with you. I'm going to talk about some key dates just to bring them to your attention. Applications are due between January 18th and February 17th. Those are the dates for standard application submittals. February 2nd, we'll order the election and have a resolution for a joint agreement to run the election. We also will be able to cancel the election if we have unopposed candidates by February 22nd. We're going to draw for order of names on the ballot on February 27th. And two key dates that are important to anyone who's applying, and that's April 6th and April 28th. And those are the days that you have to submit paperwork for any election funds. So those two dates are important to anyone applying. Early voting is April 24th till May 2nd. And then May 6th will be Election Day. And two additional dates will have a time frame between 9 of May and 17 for canvassing the election. And then May 18th will be the first day that whoever is elected will be seated in these chairs in front of us now. I'd also like to talk a little bit about what our plans are for the upcoming election. I've been communicating with BISD and Kendall County elections offices. And we have learned that Van Rob will no longer be a site for us to utilize. And so I know BISD has been keen on trying to find a location. They've reached out to the schools. Of course, they knew they wouldn't be able to use them. They've also reached out to our local churches, and they are not available during early voting, and that's the biggest time frame. So we are working to provide this particular facility here in Public Safety Training Room. And in addition to BISD, City of Fair Oaks Ranch will also plan to contract with Kendall County. We've had communications with Bear County, and we understand at this point in time that there are no entities that are taxing districts that will impact any of our Bear County voters that would require them to go to an alternate location. So we're hoping to be a one-stop shop, one location for all of our citizens from Comal, Kendall, and Bear County to be able to come here. Nothing is we have no council meetings that time. There's no court. We're able to modify, our regular in-house meetings, and I think we'll be doing fine. I just wanted to bring it to your attention in case anyone asks you any questions, and to see if you had any concerns about that. And that was all of my presentation. I just wanted to update you and let you know we're getting ready to start receiving applications.
Further questions? Nope. Any questions from anyone here tonight? All right. Thanks, Christine.
Great, thank you.
And the last item we have on the agenda tonight is reports from staff and committees. And this is a recap of the September 2022 Household Hazardous Waste event. And Kelsey's gonna,
Good evening.
who actually led the event.
I did. I helped bring it to light this year. Yes, my name is Kelsey. I'm the Environmental Program Manager for the City of Fair Oaks Ranch. And today I wanted to go ahead and present a quick summary of our Household Hazardous Waste event that we hosted back in September. So first off, this is an annual event. Thank you. This is an annual event that we host. This is our 5th year doing it. And it is an opportunity for our residents to come by and drop off various household hazardous waste materials that they might have in their homes. Republic Services commits $20,000 to this event every year, and then the city budgeted for this past year, $10,000. There it goes. So some of the most common materials that are accepted and that we accepted this past year, this past event, was first paints and paint materials. We accepted, I'll go over the exact numbers a little bit later, but the majority of what we accepted were paint and paint materials. That included latex paints, oil-based paints, stains, varnishes, thinners, items like that. Additionally, herbicides and pesticides were also one of the top items that we collected, as well as other flammable liquids. Additional materials that we did collect, there was a wide range. It was aerosols, cooking oils, fertilizers, pool chemicals, even just regular household cleaners, items of that accord. So here's a couple photos of our setup. This was at the Cibolo Creek Community Church. We, as it was done in the past, we did it as 2 lanes. At the beginning, before the event started, we had a line of residents waiting. It's a very popular event with our residents. They love it. So the first hour or so, it was very busy. We had a lot of people come through. However, the line moved very quickly, and as time went on, we've had a slow trickle of residents still coming by to drop off their materials. This is the setup of where the hazardous waste materials were actually collected from. Clean Earth is the company that Republic Services contracts out to collect these materials. I have to give them props. They are like a well-oiled machine. They have this down to the T, and they were extremely professional and really good to work with. So moving into more of the collection summary, this year for 2022, we saw 189 vehicles or participants. Of those participants, we collected 14,000 pounds of hazardous waste materials. The overall cost for this last event was $38,422. And so the way that broke down is roughly every vehicle dropped off about 76 pounds of materials, which cost about $200 per participant. As mentioned before, paint and paint-related materials were the vast majority of what was collected. It was 8,000 pounds. Coming into a second is pesticides and herbicides, which was just under 3,000 pounds that we collected, and then flammable liquids was about 1,700. Fortunately, 0% of the amount of materials that we collected went to a landfill, which is excellent. None of the materials we collected went to a landfill, so we were able to save that from going into just our normal trash. 38% of the materials were recycled, 37% were used as alternative fuels, and then the rest was either treated or they were incinerated. So the cost breakdown year by year, this is the 5th year that we've hosted it. We went in about $1,400 less than what we spent last year. It was at $38,000. Last year was 2021 was $39,000. Other important information on this is, as expected, from 2019 to 2022, the cost of labor, the cost of equipment, supplies, all of that steadily has gone up, which has accounted to a lower number, but not as we collected less, but the numbers just even out a little bit because on why our total has not gone down as much as the amount of weight we've collected has gone down, if that makes sense. And so another summary of our annual cost. Every year since, we've gone back and forth on the amount of participants, but we still have good numbers. It's 189 that have come out. Every year, Republic Services still commits 20,000. Fair Oaks Ranch in the past has committed 10,000. For 2023, we have gone ahead. Y'all, thankfully, thank you. Y'all have committed 20,000, so you've bumped our budget up by 10,000, which is good because each year we have had a shortage when it comes to the funding for this project. Republic Services has covered that shortage from 2018 to 2021. So going forward, if there is still a shortage, we will be covered through our new budget. And so I just wanted to go ahead and give some props and some thanks to some of our volunteers. One of them is the Rotary Club. They had about 20 volunteers come out to help run this operation. We are extremely grateful to them. They helped count vehicles, they helped check people in, and help direct traffic, and we very much appreciate their participation in this event. Secondly, I wanted to go ahead and thank the city staff for volunteering their time. We were there bright and early Saturday morning to set up. They helped to run and coordinate the event, and then as well break down. And lastly, a huge thank you to Cibolo Creek Community Church. They have volunteered their venue, their parking lot, for the second year in a row, and we just wanted to very much thank them for their time and their venue as well. Does anyone have any questions?
Questions?
I got one. Is next year's in September as well? Do we have a date?
We do not have a date as of yet, but we do like to keep it around the same time frame.
Okay.
Anybody else? Kelsey, I'd like to echo the thanks that you gave, and starting off with you, the effort that you put into this, to keeping it organized, had it start off very well, and I just want to thank you for your support. I know that you had a lot of support from the city staff to help you get through this, and they all did a great job, so thank you for the city staff.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Also to the Rotary Club of Fair Oaks Ranch and Greg Bushman, the president of the Rotary Club, for offering up all the Rotarians that came out and helped with it. And of course, Cibolo Creek Community Church, who has continued to support us and help us with the event.
Yep.
But I just wanted to echo the same thoughts that you had. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
Completes our reports from staff and committees. We'll move on to request and announcement. Did any council member have any announcements that they wanted to make tonight? Yes, ma'am.
I have an announcement. So I do want to announce, as the fire liaison, that the chief of the fire department for the Leon Springs Fire Department has announced his retirement. He has been our fire chief, or this area's fire chief, for over 40 years, which is older than the city of Fair Oaks Ranch. And he has served our city and the area well. So anticipate further information about this at a future council meeting. The Leon Springs board will be voting on the new fire chief on Tuesday night. I will be attending. And I will be inviting the new fire chief to our next city council meeting, where I'm hoping we can introduce him to council and to city staff, and then him or her, excuse me, and then also allow us to thank the former fire chief. So that's all I have.
All right. Thanks, Laura.
Oh, wait, and we are really close to the the fire station opening. Anticipate an invitation to the official grand opening of the fire station on Ralph Fair Road at some hopefully soon time. In the next month and a half. No, not those scissors.
Yeah, they've already had enough trouble.
We can give them those. We can have them.
Yes, ma'am.
I have two announcements. As the court liaison, I was told recently we had a couple of jury trials that the residents may be aware of, and we had an amazing response from our residents to show up for jury duty, who served, and then if you don't know, you get an extremely large compensation for serving on jury duty of like $6 or something. However, even though it's not a lot, every single one of the folks who served on our jury decided to donate their compensation instead of keeping it. And so that amount was donated to Golfers for Others. And that is a group that is based out of Fair Oaks Ranch. It's just a group of retirees that use their own money to help other elderly folks and disabled folks renovate their homes when they need it. And so I thought that was really cool that all of our residents decided to donate their money to a charity. So I wanted to give kudos to our neighbors who did that. And my second announcement is my sister gave birth to a healthy, very healthy baby boy just a couple of hours ago. This is why I've been feverishly texting on my phone. She gave birth to a 9-pound, 15-ounce baby boy whose name is yet to be determined, so I will call him Gus. Congratulations to my sister.
Thanks, Emily. Anybody else? I had 3 quick announcements. Bulk trash pickup is going to start here next week, with Sector 1 being the 9th through the 13th of January, Sector 2 the 16th through the 20th of January, and then Sector 3 through the 23rd through the 27th of January. Notices should have been sent out and information throughout the neighborhood. If you need clarification on the dates or your sector you're in, please call City Hall and we can get the information to you. City offices will be closed on the 16th of January in observance of Martin Luther King Day. And a reminder to everybody, we've talked about it at several council meetings about the town hall meeting, which is scheduled for the 24th of January. That'll be at 6:30 at the Spring Creek United Methodist Church. The topic is on transportation, and we encourage all residents to attend. Tobin, any other? All right. From council, do we have any request for future agenda items? Do you have a future, do what? Do you have a future agenda item? Is this tree preservation? It's scheduled for the 2nd of February. Any other items? Okay. We didn't have any need to go into executive session tonight. And Christina, anything that we missed or we need to pick up on for
No,
tonight's
sir.
meeting?
No, sir.
Tobin, from you? All right. I now have the time is 7:40 and we are adjourned.